the architect of rhythms. In the quiet hours before the city fully exhales, Alara stood by the panoramic window of the great metropolitan hospital. To many, the heart is a metaphor for love or courage, but to Alara, it was a masterpiece of biological engineering, a percussive engine that required the most delicate of conductors. She adjusted her white coat, her mind already synchronizing with the steady digital pulse of the monitors. Alara possessed a rare lexicon of life. She spoke in the language of valves, ventricles, and vascular pathways. Her colleagues often marveled at her ability to decipher the most obscure murmurs. While others heard a simple beat, Alara heard a complex symphony, identifying every subtle dissonance that threatened to disrupt the body's equilibrium. That morning, she visited room 402. There sat Cassian, a man whose life had always been defined by movement, climbing mountains and chasing horizons. Now, his world had narrowed to the confines of a sterile room. His heart, once a robust drum, was now fluttering like a trapped bird, struggling against an invisible cage. Alara sat beside him, not with the hurried air of a technician, but with the presence of an ally. "The architecture of your heart is sound, Cassian," she explained, her voice a calm anchor in his storm of anxiety. "We are simply going to recalibrate the rhythm. We will navigate the narrowest channels to ensure the flow is restored." Preparation for the procedure required a meticulousness that bordered on the artistic. Alara spent hours reviewing the diagnostic imagery, mapping out the route through Cassian's femoral artery. Every twist and turn was etched into her memory, a cognitive rehearsal for the high-stakes journey she was about to undertake. In the preoperative suite, a nurse named Jace checked the final readings. He had worked with Alara for years and knew the weight of the silence that preceded a difficult case. He offered Cassian a reassuring nod as he adjusted the intravenous lines, preparing him for the transition to the theater of healing. The operating room was a sanctuary of steel and blue light. Alara stood at the center, her hands gloved and her mind sharp. She was no longer just a doctor. She was a navigator. The bravery required here was not found in loud declarations, but in the steady hand that moves with sub-millimeter precision when the margin for error is non-existent. With the grace of a calligrapher, Alara guided the catheter through the labyrinth of Cassian's anatomy. On the monitors, she watched the progress, her eyes never wavering. When she reached the site of the blockage, she felt the subtle resistance and then, with a decisive movement, cleared the path. Hours later, the cacophony of the machine settled into a rhythmic, reassuring hum. Alara visited the recovery ward to find Cassian waking. The pallor of his skin had been replaced by a faint, healthy glow. For the first time in months, his chest rose and fell, with a breath that was deep, effortless, and true. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Alara left the hospital. The city lights began to flicker on, a vast network of pulses mimicking the very hearts she spent her life protecting. She understood that her work was a quiet defiance against frailty, a commitment to ensuring that every story, like Cassian's, could continue its beat.